with everything today, guys, excuse me. We all know those super cute, viral, chunky handbags you can knit yourself, right? I've seen so many videos about them the last few weeks, and quite honestly, I just have to try it out now, and therefore I ordered a huge ball of wool. I've never knitted, I have never done anything with wool in my whole life, and when I ordered the wool I had no idea how much wool I will need for this project, because I can only buy in pounds and I don't know how much wool is 1 pound. So now I have a big ball of wool. Oh my god. I guess I could knit a whole blanket with this amount of wool, not only a handbag. When I know how much wool I exactly need for 1 handbag, I think I maybe can make a second handbag with this amount of wool, or a pillow, or maybe a blanket. I really don't know and I have no idea, but we will figure it out soon. I've watched a few YouTube video tutorials about how to make a chunky handbag, but the problem is in each tutorial they used another type of chunky yarn and it's much more chunkier than mine. Mine is really thin, I have to admit, and so I really don't know if the tutorials will work for my handbag. I really don't have any plan what I'm doing right now, and I think maybe in 1 hour it will only get worse. So let's just start and I try to create my own video tutorial thing for a good, hopefully good handbag, and yeah, let's get started. The first thing we want to do is create a slip knot. To do so, we first lay our yarn straight in front of us. Then we create a loop with the yarn. Now we have to pull the yarn through the hole we created and pull the yarn tight. This creates our first slip knot. Especially if you have no experience with crocheting or knitting, it helps if you make yourself a tool with which you measure your stitches. I used a piece of folded paper to measure my stitches. The side I used for measuring is about 4 centimeters long. Now you need to go through the hole with 2 fingers and create another knot. Pull the knot tight again and make sure that all knots are exactly the same size. For the perfect size of my bag, I made a total of 8 knots. If you want a larger handbag than mine, simply make more knots. If you want a smaller handbag, make fewer knots. If a specific item has to fit in your bag, it's best to place it next to your bag and check whether the item will actually fit in the bag. By measuring regularly, you manage to make nice even stitches and end up with a great result. After making 8 knots, we have also created 8 holes. Place your chain in front of you with the beginning of the chain on your left hand side. Now start pulling the yarn through each of the holes that have been created by your knots. This will create loops that we will continue to work with later. We now start our first round of loops. Pull the yarn through the first hole. It's very important that the loop that is now created is exactly the same size as our first loop. It's best to measure each loop at the beginning so that your bag looks even at the end. Now put a finger through the next hole from above and pull the yarn through the hole again from below. You have now created the next loop. Now repeat the process until you have reached the last hole. Don't forget to measure regularly as you continue. After we have pulled the last loop through the last hole on the first side of our chain, we have to turn our chain once. If you are not sure whether you have made the right number of loops or you whether have pulled a loop through each hole, simply count your loops. You must have created 8 loops in total. Now turn your chain, then we can repeat the exact same process on the second side of our chain. Now we create another 8 loops, which are put through the same 8 holes as we did on the first side of our chain. At the end you must also have a total of 8 loops on the second side. Make sure your loops are always the same size here too. As soon as we have put the last loop through the last hole, we are finished with our first round. To make sure you are finished with your first round, count the loops of your second row. If you count 8 loops, you are finished for sure. Now we can start our second round. At first, turn your chain again. Instead of pulling the yarn through 8 holes, we pull the yarn through the loops that we have created in the first round. Pull your finger through the loop from the top and pull the yarn upwards. Don't forget to measure your loops again and again. Now repeat the process until you have reached the end of your chain. When you have reached the last loop, you have finished the first row of your second round. Make sure you always pull firmly on the loops so that everything is tight. Now you have to turn your chain again and pull another 8 loops through the loops of your first round. At the end of your second round, turn your chain again and start the third round. The third round works exactly the same way as the second round. And again, if you're not sure whether you have made the right number of loops or whether you have pulled a loop through each loop, simply count your loops. You must have created 8 loops in total. The only difference between the second and all following rounds is that from the third round onwards, you pull firmly on the loops, especially on the sides of the bag, so that everything sits firmly and has a nice even shape. Turn your chain again after you have completed the first side of your third round and make another 8 loops. And again, you are finished with the third round as soon as you have created 8 loops. Now make a fourth round.
How many rounds you have to do in total depends on how big you want your bag to be in the end. I want my notebook or a book to fit in my handbag. That's why every now and then I test whether my notebook would fit in my bag. Since I have a relatively thin yarn, I make a relatively large number of rounds. But if you have a very thick yarn, 4 or maybe 5 rounds may very well be enough. The 5th round works exactly the same as the last round. Check your stitches every now and then and see if everything looks even. Don't forget to measure regularly to make sure your loops are all the same size. If you need one, do another round too. Don't forget to check whether the item you want already fits in your bag.
Little news, I have great news. So guys, I have news in the middle of my process. I'm so overwhelmed with everything today. Guys, excuse me, my bad English. I'm halfway through and I started this sequence of filming like 10 times because I'm struggling so much with speaking English because I really never speak English. I speak English maybe in vacation once a year. So I have word finding insecurities. I don't know the word in English. I am so fucked up. I am so fucked up. I really don't know why I try to make English videos, but I have the feeling that when I make just German videos, the whole world is missing my creativity, and so I just have to switch to English now. The good news is I'm halfway through my creativity project and I'm so happy with it. I'm really surprised, but the handbag looks so pretty good, I think so. Handbag looks like this actually. This is the outside at the moment and this is the inside, and I think at the end of the process I will turn the inside out, but I'm not quite sure. At the moment I'm thinking about whether to add another row or leave it as it is. And I'm not sure because I want to take my notebook with me and it fits really good, but not completely. Is it okay when I leave it like that, or do I just need another row? I think I make another row because when it doesn't fit in the end, I know I will be sad. So I think I add another row and we will see how it looks.
Now we are adding the last round. The last round works exactly like the rounds before. I am now happy with the size of my handbag. So now we can finish the body of the handbag and then make the handles. Now take the piece of yarn that sticks out from the bottom of the body of the handbag. Please do not cut off that piece. We are going to work this piece of yarn with the handbag by threading it through the holes in the handbag until there's no yarn left. Then we carefully turn the inside of the handbag outwards. Now we are almost done with the body of the handbag. That's why we can now start finishing the edges of the bag. After that, we just have to make the handles and then our handbag is finished. Next, we need to close the edge of the handbag. But before we can do that, we have to cut the yarn. We need to leave enough yarn remaining to close the edge of the handbag and also for the handles. For the edge of the handbag, I'll take twice the length of the handbag from the yarn. For each handle, I estimate about 3 lengths of the handbag. I want fairly short handles. If you want longer handles, be sure to leave more yarn. Once I have the right length, I cut the yarn. To close the edge of the handbag now, we take the end of the yarn and thread it through each of the 16 loops we created. Pull the yarn each time from the inside of the bag outwards through the loop. Once you've pulled the yarn through the last loop, you need to check if the edge of the bag is too tight. If you think the opening of the bag is too tight for you, gently widen the opening until you are satisfied. Now we can make the handle of the handbag. Pass the yarn from the inside to the outside through one of the holes of the bag. So we create a small loop that we can continue working with. My handbag will have a handle that goes from the one outer side to the other. Making the handle is super easy. Do you remember how we started the bag at the very beginning? That's exactly how we're making the handle now. Pull the yarn through the first loop and form the next loop with it. Repeat the process until you like the length of your handle. I made 10 knots for my handle. In the meantime, after I've shot this video here, I've made this cute handbag with 2 handles. And if you want a tutorial for this handbag, please let me know in the comments too. If you like the length of the handle, attach the handle on the other side of the bag. Pull the last loop of the handle through a hole into the inside of the handbag. Now pass the yarn over the edge of the handbag and pull it through the loop of the handle which is on the inside of the bag. Our handle is now attached to the bag and we are almost finished with our handbag. Now we can make the second handle. This works exactly how we've done the first handle. Pull a loop from the inside of the handle to the outside and now make as many knots as you did for the first handle. In my case, I made 10 knots again. Attach the handle on the other side of the bag. Pull the last loop of the handle through a hole into the inside of the handbag. Now pass the yarn over the edge of the handbag and pull it through the loop of the handle which is on the inside of the bag. We now just use the rest of our yarn to support our bag. Run the yarn from the inside to the outside and back to the inside until your yarn is used up. If you have more yarn left over, you can also use it to secure the edge of the handbag and pass it through the entire edge once.
I am done and this is my finished handbag and I love the results so much. I'm so happy, I'm so proud, and knitting the handbag by myself was so much fun that I instantly made a second one, and the second handbag is even better, nearly perfect, and I only needed 1 hour to make the second handbag. So guys, if you love DIY videos and you love crafting, don't forget to subscribe my channel so we can see us at my next DIY project.